Sanibonani, Dumelang, and welcome to yet another episode of the Enactus Perspective, brought to you by Enactus South Africa. Today we have none other than the unlearning lady, Zanele Njapha herself, who's going to share with us just a bit more about her journey and how Enactus has shaped her life. Ms. Njapha, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Thank you. The unlearning lady. Like when you hear that, it's like, what is that? Like, what are we unlearning? Okay, we get you're a lady, but like, what exactly is the unlearning lady all about? To give us some more.
Okay, cool. So, there's a lot to unpack there.
Okay.
So I've got a history in education. So I'm a teacher by profession.
Okay.
And one of the biggest things that I noticed during my time in teaching and transitioning into the work that I do now with organizations is that we think we need to learn future skills. But if we look at children, young children, they've got skills like inquisitiveness. They've got the skill of inquiry. They've got the skill of playfulness, which if you actually look at it, translates into today's business soft skills. So the idea in my head at the time when I was still practicing is there must be some kind of occurrence in the middle somewhere.
Yes.
Because if we say we need these skills later on, but then we start off with them, what was happening in between? And what was really happening in between is the stereotypes, is the ideas around who we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do, also business practice and legacy and dogma. And so as a result, our biggest work is not necessarily to jump into something new, but it's to let go of some of the things that hold us back. So that's how that unlearning lady was born.
I love that. To let go of some of the things that we have learned. So what is the process now of letting these things go?
Sure. So it's a lot, but really the crux of today's conversation was exactly that. It was really those two key things, looking and looking again. So what does that mean? The very first part of unlearning anything is awareness, because many of us hold this position around how what we are doing and who we are is perfectly all right. Like, I'm fine. I know what I'm doing. I like it here. It works. I've been doing things this way for a very long time. So it's awareness, understanding that there are things that are holding us back, understanding that there are perspectives, practices, strategies, procedures that do need to be let go of. Because on the other side of letting go of those is expansion, is scaling, is growth. So that's the first part I'd say is most important, is just awareness, being aware of what assumptions have been made. And then the second part is pushing back at them, asking the questions that actually make the difference. How can I grow in this situation? What is this situation inviting me to take a look at about myself, about my organization, about my company, about my team? Asking those questions helps to stimulate the brain to see things differently. Because I think most of us, it's funny because we think we're showing up as different people, but the stimulus that we get on a day-to-day basis at work and at home is exactly the same. We speak to the same people, we watch the same programs, we read the same magazines, and then we think we're going to be people who want to grow, but it actually doesn't work that way. So unlearning is fairly simple. It's just about being aware and then challenging some of those assumptions that we're making.
Sure. Okay, so once you're aware, now let's take this in a business format. So let's say a company needs to like re-strategize and like maybe come up with a new marketing plan, right? So how would you then, through the unlearning process, intervene within that company and make them aware? Because with every company, there's a culture, right? There's a way of doing things. So how then do you then say, Chip, Dollar World, you're not doing this correctly. Let's try and unlearn certain things. How do you then go about that process?
Okay, cool. So one of the best places to start is to look at the conversations in the marketplace. So what are our clients saying about what we deliver to them? So are we getting feedback that points us in the direction that the marketplace has changed, that consumer practices have changed, that best practice has changed, or even the economy? So are we getting conversations around how the environment around us has shifted? So that's the first thing to look at. And the next thing to look at is how do those things then potentially adjust what we've got going on? So for example, if the economy has slightly shifted and it's affected buying patterns of our consumers, for example, and people no longer want to spend on, if we're talking about marketing, maybe they no longer want to spend on lotion just for beauty's sake. People just want to not be dry, then it's the basic necessity. So you ask the question of how has that then impacted what we do? And you couple that with your growth strategy, like your initial business strategy. What were we trying to achieve in the very first place? And once you look at how the environment is speaking to us, but you couple that with a truthness to yourself, because I think what we do is we're very reactive a lot of the time. And organizations that I've worked with, bless them, and this is the conversation we often have, is moving from being very reactive to having a strategy that, yes, is a reaction, because when you're strategic, you need both. You need a reactive strategy, but you also need a proactive strategy that says that these are the goals I want to go out to market with. So we would have that conversation with that organization, and then we'd ask those two questions. Now, what assumptions did you guys make as a team when it comes to your marketing strategy about what it means to market today? Marketing back then was so simple. You know, you shared a few things on social media. Nowadays, what we're seeing in the trend space is that it's co-creative. Consumers, especially online, want to feel like they're a part of product development. They want to feel like, you know, they want to feel involved in brands. And so you ask those questions. What assumptions did you guys make as you sit in here? Are there assumptions that are somewhere bubbling under the surface? We talk about them out in the open. No one's getting judged. And then we go further to say, okay, as we've detailed each one of those, how can we challenge those assumptions? Does it mean going out, running a brand new branch of market research, speaking to more consumers, getting on the ground so that we do that beautiful co-creation that then allows us to move from where we used to be to where we now want to be?
I absolutely love that. It's just really simplifying. Where do we need to go? How do we need to actually diversify and unlearn the assumptions that we've made that will actually make us grow a bit more? I love that. Now, when it comes to your journey in Enactus, we cannot ignore that you are part of the Enactus family, right? You are an alumni. So how did your involvement in Enactus and your journey from Enactus translate to the unlearning lady?
Oh, my goodness, in such a profound way. I always am reminded of a moment we were at Nationals camp. So we have a camp that we prepare. We use the camp to prepare for the competition. So we rehearse our presentations, we look at our projects and everything else. And I'll never forget sitting with a member of the team, watching a past presentation. I had never even thought that I would want to be a presenter. We were just watching. It was my very first year in Enactus. And he nudged me and he said, Zanele, I think you could do that. And I remember going, I don't know, hey? Because, I mean, I associate as an introvert. And I remember going, I don't think so. But I promise you, from the time that I was asked to do it, and I interacted with people on stage doing exactly that, I knew. You know how they say that you get, I actually just got chills now. They say you just know. And so it was, I never looked back. And so that's why I always say, I've been speaking to beautiful students throughout this time today and saying never underestimate what it means to be a part of this organization. Because when you look a few years down the line, when you've left university, you compare a student that was part of Enactus and a student that wasn't, the results show for themselves. You just can't compare it. Whether that person's in corporate or they run their own business, there's just something different. So I think that the concept of the unlearning lady was born through falling in love with sharing a message and presenting and creating impact. And so as a result, it all snowballed from there. But I can definitely attribute a lot of who I am and what I do to this organization.
So you unlearned your being an introvert nature. And that translated to this powerhouse of women called the Unlearning Lady. And we are still with her in this chat where we are talking about the Enactus perspective from her lens. Now, let's dig deep into what you would then describe your journey as throughout Enactus. So in 3 words, kindly explain to us how you would describe your transition from Enactus to the Unlearning Lady, just in 3 words.
Oh. I guess I would be very cheesy and use our company values: learn, change, grow.
So you learned, you changed, and you grew. We absolutely love that. So what advice now would you have to someone watching and saying, I'm inspired by this lady, and I too want to be a change maker and be, you know, a game changer in my field? What would you say to them?
Wow, where do you even start when there's so much to say, right? I think I'm going to be, once again, very cheesy because I live for change. Change is not just something I speak about, but I honestly believe that if each and every person can just feel better about changing. We live in a society that says, oh, you changed. How dare you? I thought you were this girl. But that's the purpose of life. Aren't we supposed to grow? And so I think if I ever give any advice, it would just be allow yourself to just always be changing. Be okay with that, and then also allow other people to change around you as well and support that process. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. I mean, on that note, change, allow yourself to change, and allow everyone around you to change as well, because change means good.
Yeah.
Change means progress, and change means impact. And with that note, thank you so much for joining us, Zanele. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.